Welcome back. This is Fantastic Pains and How We Hide Them. And I'm not Chris.
And I'm not Karina, but we're here together.
We are. We're here. And we have some interesting things to talk about on today's episode.
That we do, hopefully.
Yeah. So we kind of sat down and we talked about what we wanted to kind of cover. Because there's so much to this whole thing, which is why this is a podcast and not a short series. This is an ongoing adventure.
It will never end.
And we learn new things continually. So again, like, we're not the experts here.
Also,
We're the experts on ourselves.
send questions our way. I'd like to answer any and all questions.
I think it'd be
personal
really
or
cool.
otherwise.
Yeah.
The more personal, the better.
You might get really ridiculous answers if you do that, though.
That's why I want them.
It'll be hilarious.
I want the good answers.
There you go. So what's on our agenda today?
Here, I'll put the agenda.
Aha.
Those are our topics.
So when we talk about kind of our experience, and we've talked about our journey to diagnosis and kind of from there and what that looks like. So we thought we'd kind of get a little bit more in depth with the experience of, again, living with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome.
Yeah.
And what that looks like on a day-to-day basis. So we have doctor shopping, which I know I mentioned earlier.
It just has a bad connotation too, just saying
It really does. Like, and it's really interesting to me because if you think about it, they are service providers, right?
Yeah.
And generally when you're working with service providers, you can be a little picky and choosy.
Yeah, like you wouldn't stick with certain internet if you hated it, but you don't get that same feeling with a doctor. You're like, if we're not vibing, I'm stuck with this guy forever.
Right. And that can be really detrimental all the way around.
Yeah.
Especially if you have kind of a background of medical neglect, like a lot of zebras have. So kind of getting into doctor shopping. This kind of came up for us because very recently I kind of axed part of my team and replaced with new providers. So I axed my gastro and I axed my neurologist.
Yep.
And so far, fantastic decision, but it took a long time to make.
Oh, man.
I wish I had done it sooner. But again, it's that like negative piece in your brain and the game that you have to play to get your needs met.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, part of that is knowing when you need to change too. Mm-hmm. Like you said, you waited too long.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was you didn't feel like you needed to.
Right.
Until it was your primary care, right? That suggested you need to see someone else for neurology.
Exactly. So my not my neurologist, my primary care, very just kind of subtly threw it in there and was like, I think maybe you need a second opinion. And there are other neurologists.
Yeah.
And then it hit me and I was like, oh, I'm allowed to do that.
That is a thing I can do.
I'm allowed. That is okay.
It's weird. You feel like you need permission, but you do.
Exactly. Yeah. So I took that permission and I ran with it. And that, I just knew I wasn't vibing with my gastro at that point either. So when I kind of cleaned out my provider list.
Time to update.
Yeah, exactly. But I think we have a much better team now. And I use the word team because it's really important that they're all communicating appropriately and you're communicating appropriately with them.
Yeah.
In order to get your needs met.
See, I have a completely different experience. All of mine are separated, so they don't talk between each other.
Right.
So I had to find groups that would work independently and agree with each other without having to explicitly talk.
Right.
Because they all try their best. It took me like 8 years to build the team that we have now.
Right.
And it was like 4 primary care providers, 5 pain management clinics. I went through a bunch of like nephrologists, oncologists, not oncologists. I did have to see one for that tumor, but
Yeah.
that was a whole other thing. What am I thinking of? Endocrinology.
Yep.
I need to find a new one, actually.
I don't have one yet. I haven't
I need one.
dealt with that part.
My testosterone's way wrong.
That's the other fun part about EDS is you kind of have to prioritize your needs.
Exactly.
And then just tackle things as they go.
Oh, yeah.
So
I've been doing surgery priority.
Yeah, exactly. So surgery was priority, and now
Yep.
that I'm 8 weeks out, I think. Sorry. Now that I'm 8 weeks out from surgery, I'm starting to think about other things, and right now we're working with neurology to see what's going on in my neck, which I'm really excited about. But that's not for another month, so
Yeah.
now it's the waiting game.
I want to work on fatigue.
Yeah.
That'll be my next piece.
Heck yeah. Well, and you're doing that this week, right?
Yeah, Monday.
Woo!
Hopefully. David seems like a really nice guy, so I don't feel
Good.
like I have to hide it. It won't be one of those things where I have to like shuffle around the subject. Like,
Yeah.
well, you know, I've been having this. I don't know. Can you help me? Maybe, possibly with my problem. No, I can. He's one of those doctors you can actually tell him what's going on, and
Right.
he'll give you a healthy response, what he thinks is right instead of,
Yeah.
which is good.
Well, and my neurologist asks questions, which is something I was like, what?
That's one of my notes from 2 weeks ago.
What?
Was having a doctor ask why.
Yeah.
Like, why is this happening?
That's huge.
You need a doctor who will ask that
Oh my
question.
goodness. That was, and I just like looked at him because I was like, I don't have an answer for you. And nobody else has thought to ask that question.
Yeah.
Like dysautonomia was the big one. He was like, do they know what's causing it? And I was like, nah.
No, they always just say EDS and move
Yeah,
on.
exactly. So EDS is it becomes this umbrella term
Yeah.
for all of the stuff. But my neurologist was like, it's possible to have EDS and other things, which my brain's like, I can't even accept that I have EDS half the time. So,
Let alone another problem.
right, exactly. You're like my list of diagnoses. No, thank you.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah. So let's talk about how do you know that you need to find somebody else?
My situations have always been really dire. Like, I'll stick with someone and be like, well, maybe it was the first interaction, or maybe it was the second interaction. You know, like, maybe next time they'll trust me more to where I
Right.
can talk to them. Really, it should be, if the first interaction you have with this person is off-putting, you should think about seeing someone else.
Yep.
Because you got to think of it, they're people too. It's like you wouldn't see a friend that you just randomly met that you hated all the time. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
These are people, and you have to get along with these people.
Well, and it's important to remember that they have their own biases.
Exactly.
Like they have their own like go-to mode of thinking. Those neural paths are set for them just the same way they're set for us.
Yes.
And so if they're not actively combating that, it's time to find somebody that you can communicate clearly with.
Right.
And I think a big part of that is that masking piece, where depending on who you're with, and that's just huge in general, where we like to downplay symptoms.
Yes.
And so a lot of the time we need somebody to keep us kind of accountable.
Yeah, that's why I bring Jen or you to my big important
Yeah.
ones.
I take notes for myself.
Yeah.
Like I'll write things down that I want to go over or talk about to try not to downplay.
You have to, though.
Yeah. But sometimes it can be really hard walking into an office and being like, this, and this are all bothering me, and having them look at you and be like, okay,
Yeah.
it's migraines.
Right.
Like, but it's not.
The other part of it is that you have doctors who are going to hate your current treatment plan. Like, they're going to mean that they'll have the best intentions, but they're going to think that whatever you're doing is completely wrong and you need to stop it. Like, I've run into that a ton of times. Not just with pain management, but even in how I was treating my testosterone levels before. They put me on an estrogen blocker,
Yeah.
which was fantastic because it didn't put me on testosterone shots my entire life.
Yeah.
I took that. It raised the testosterone again. Everything was good. But I had other doctors chew me out for it.
Really?
Yeah. I was like, I don't know why you're this heated about it. It's
That's
working for me, and
crazy.
it's not hurting me in any way.
Yeah. I had sort of the same experience. Like I had, I'm trying to remember who did what, but we stopped Verapamil for a minute.
Yeah.
Because they were trying to figure out something. But I was taking the Verapamil not for my blood pressure, but because I was having esophageal spasms, and it works as a calcium channel blocker. So when I stopped that, they came back, and then I wound up going back to my primary care, and he was like, well, why did we stop that? And I was like, I don't know. They wanted to see if something would change.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it was the fainting. Because I was having the syncope episodes. And so he stopped, and the syncope didn't change, and the esophageal spasms came back. And he was like, well, that was stupid. Let's put you back on that medication that works for you.
Right.
So, I mean, you want someone who's in your corner and who's
Right.
actually interested in helping you.
Right. I always end up in the place where I know that I need to change, but I always feel like I'm in the wrong. Like
But
they're the
for
doctor.
asking, yeah.
Right. They would know better. Like I'm on this thing that's clearly working, but you think I should try something else, and it throws doubt into my head instantly. To where I'm like, I guess you're right. Maybe I never needed this
Right.
to begin with, and then I suffer from my bad choices.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is that, like, we want every doctor we see to be good, right? Mm-hmm. We want that to be the case, but that's not always the case.
No.
And sometimes we have to take the reins and be responsible for our care and be an active partner in our own care.
Yeah.
And I think that part is huge, being able to be an active partner in your own care and having somebody recognize that you're the expert on how you feel.
Yes. Well, and imagine that they develop this kind of, I guess,
Jaded.
yeah, like, well, they're so used to people coming in and just they get this not like a feeling of superiority, but they know they have to be so matter of factual with some people
Right.
to make them listen and follow through. And a lot of people just show up and they're like, I have this little problem, fix it.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, sure, whatever.
Right.
Or they come in and they think they know everything and they become smartasses, and then that's a really bad foot to start on.
Well, and that's the other part is because we try to be really knowledgeable about what's going
Yeah.
on, and we do extensive research, but it's also really hard not to come across as a self-diagnoser or like, oh, WebMD told me blah, 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 blah. So a lot of the time, like, I will throw options in there very carefully,
Exactly.
and you have to be, and even with the doctors that I do trust, I'm still very careful when I present like options that I have researched or want to consider.
Yep. That's what Monday's going to be. Be like, I used to try this medication. I'd like to try it again.
Yeah. Well, and I was, so my husband wants to get back on Adderall. He's got
Yeah.
ADHD. And it was interesting because I was teaching him how to navigate the system, essentially, how to navigate the medical system so that your needs are met without sounding one way or the other.
Right.
Right. So,
It's so hard when you think everyone's going to assume you're like a pill junkie.
yes.
So you have to be very careful about what you're asking and
Yeah.
why you're asking.
Yes. Well, and that part's huge, the why.
Yeah.
And being able to explain yourself eloquently enough to, again, get your needs met.
Right.
So even just recently, I saw my PCP who manages like my pain meds right now. And I had shingles and I had surgery, and so I've been going through them faster than I like to.
Yeah.
But we've built a strong enough relationship over the years that he can look at me and go, you're really good about managing your stuff. You've been really good about making sure that you're doing this responsibly. I trust you with your care. So yes, let's do what you want to do. Because I flat out asked him, I was like, how much leeway or grace do I have before we have to talk about like a pain management contract?
Yeah.
Because the contracts can be really difficult, and you have
Oh, I've encountered that many times.
yeah, and you have a lot of background in that.
Oh my God, so many. Like when I went in for the fentanyl patches they put me on, and we did, like, I went in and I was dying, not literally dying, but I was having an allergic or a severe reaction to the fentanyl itself, or the release mechanism. It's like something in the way the patches work, where I was breaking out in hives, I was swelling, I was very confused, I forgot, like I couldn't tell what was going on anymore. I was running a fever. So we went into the ER, and I was worried that they were going to have to do, like, I was like, can you, take care of me? And
Yeah.
the guy thought that I was there for pills.
You're like, I have fentanyl.
Well, and that,
What do I need you for?
I was like, why would you think I need that? He's like, well, we didn't see any other medication in your system, because they did like a blood draw. They didn't see like Vicodin, I think was the other one I was on.
Oh, uh-huh.
But I wasn't taking the Vicodin because I was taking the fentanyl patches.
Right.
So then he says, oh, so you're out of your Vicodin, you're here for meds. I was like,
No.
no. He's like, I have to call your doctor because you're on a pain agreement.
You're like, but no.
That's not at all what I'm here for. I'm here because I'm worried about dying from this fentanyl patch.
Yeah.
I'm not taking other opiates, which would usually be a good thing.
Right. That's the other part. Like,
it's
they
frustrating.
get super... Because I think the fear is that you're going to sell it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're like, if it's not in my system, that means I'm doing pretty well.
Right.
Like, so with my doctor, we have an agreement that, like, not an official agreement, but I have 30 pills over 2 months.
Right.
So it used to be over 3 months. It used to be 14 pills over 3 months. So I had to do a lot of, like, groundwork to build that trust to be able to have these requests and to have him have enough background to know that I'm taking care of my stuff.
Well, think about it. You've come a long way to where you were able to manage it on that much.
Yeah.
Like you knew when to take it versus when not to.
Exactly.
Like that's
Yeah.
probably part of the footwork he was worried about.
Mm-hmm.
So
Because that's the thing, is that with so many different kinds of pain, there's always another level.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we don't know necessarily what our 10 is because it's changing and evolving every year. So, because EDS is degenerative over time, new things pop up. So, I mean, it makes sense that we're upping as we go, but it took a lot of groundwork to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And then knowing that I have more to spare helps me to take them when I need them.
right, you're not panicked
Yeah.
as much.
Because that was the other thing. That was the really hard thing when it was like 14 over 3 months,
Yeah.
was you would sit there in horrible pain and go, but it could be worse.
Right.
So instead of taking the rescue that you have for that
The reason
purpose,
it's there, yeah.
yeah, I would save them and hoard them. And most often my husband would have to come in and go, you need to take your meds.
It's time.
You're not functional. You're crying on the floor. It's time.
You're a puddle. It's
Yeah.
time to move on.
It's time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There was part of that I was thinking about. Knowing when to leave a doctor is another thing. Mm-hmm. When to leave a doctor, like, I'm thinking about when I left pain management in general the first few times,
Mm-hmm.
because their idea of helping me was to increase every time.
Right.
At one point, I was taking 4 10 milligram of Percocet
Yeah.
a day, on top of the extended release, which was an 18 milligram extended release, which was something along the lines of 30, an additional 30 milligrams a day.
Oh.
And they wanted to up it more.
Yeah.
When I was like, I'm having problems with anxiety and I'm having really bad PTSD. Like,
Let's just drug you.
right. And the problem with that was that I would go to other doctors for other things completely.
Mm-hmm.
They would go over my med list and they would just instantly assume that I had a problem. My problem was that I was at a bad fucking pain management
Yeah.
clinic. And
Well, and the other part is like the write-off you get from other doctors
Yeah.
for being on medications.
yep.
So for a long time with my gastroenterologist or whatever it is, they're like, well, pain meds cause constipation. And I was like, not at the rate I'm taking them.
Right.
Stop writing me off for being on drugs. Like, that's ridiculous. So there is a lot of that where they're like, oh, you're taking Percocet, therefore
Yeah.
it's all of this
Well, and imagine
stuff.
them seeing the levels that I was on. Like,
Right. Well, and the
couldn't go
funny thing
anywhere.
is that we're learning now that what we take is not even close to a lot.
no.
In comparison to some people,
Holy shit.
we're taking like micro doses.
I had a conversation with my first nurse practitioner when we first started working on pain management, when we were like, oh, it's Marfans, back in those days.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'd be like, I'm so sorry. I know it stresses you guys out about this. But like, I worry every day that you're writing me off because I'm taking too many. And she was like, you're one of my lowest dose cases. Like,
Yeah.
just know that you're not a problem.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, thank God.
Yeah.
First of all, because I thought I was like at the end. I thought that where I was at was max.
Yeah.
When it's like an eighth of what people take daily.
Now, what about
At my max.
the like stigmatization that you had outside of the medical community?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
So, like, when people find out you're taking Percocet.
Well, the problem is that only people that would find out were like family members that were very judgmental about it. My mom was okay with it because she understood. I mean, I never told her how bad it was.
Yeah.
I was never like, I'm taking like so many milligrams a day. I'm pretty much a fucking walking
Take
pill.
80 milligrams a day.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
I was getting close to that.
It's crazy.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
But fuck. I had friends that were very concerned about me for a while.
Yep.
I was concerned about me, though. that was when I was super depressed too. Because, I was still dealing with a lot of mental stuff that went from childhood and on
Yeah.
that I wasn't processing. And I was still considered insane because there was nothing physically wrong with me
Right,
at the time. So we didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
So I finally left that community and found the place I'm at now. Because I told my doctors, like, I need to find a pain management clinic that works with the mental aspect along with the physical, because a lot of what I'm dealing with is more mental.
Yeah.
Like, I can cope with very little amounts of pain meds if I have, like, coping mechanisms.
Right.
And
Yeah. If otherwise you're doing okay. And that's the thing is that, like, we've talked about spoon theory before. Spoon theory and pain medication, I think that it goes together perfectly, because the lower you are on spoons and on energy and on, like, fortitude, the less pain you're able to deal with on like an independent level.
Absolutely.
So, and I mean, pain can affect mental health that way as well, but it's definitely kind of this two-way street. So, yeah, no, and like last time I went in, he was really sweet about it. He was like, "You do such a good job. We're not going to worry about like an agreement or a contract until we get to a point where you're taking it every day."
Right.
And I was like, "That is fantastic. Thank you." But at the same time, like Kaiser, because it's all in-house, is really good about that aspect as well, where they're like, you should probably get hooked back up with your psychiatrist and make sure that your antidepressants are working appropriately and check your doses and all of that stuff also. So it wasn't like an instead of, which I was really worried about.
But with.
Yes, exactly. And I think that like whole person approach is so important. And knowing that you deserve that.
Yeah.
Like you deserve to have someone look at the big picture of you.
It's got to be hard for some people, though. Like, imagine that you have this whole stigma about mental health to begin with. And part of your problem is your mental health.
Yeah.
And you're going into pain management for pain. And they're like, you need to get your mental worked out. You're going to look like a pill seeker.
Yeah. They're
going to just make that assumption, even though you're like, I'm perfectly healthy in my brain. There's no reason. Even that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I've met people like that in the group sessions. They would just like, there's this older gentleman who had been through a lot. Like he was open with sharing, but he was like, my mental's fine. I don't want to be here. I don't have bipolar like her, or like he was calling people out.
Oh, that's rude.
Yeah, I know he got scolded, but you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Like he's like, I'm not depressed. I don't have anxiety.
Yeah.
Like, but you do have some of those things. It's okay to work on it.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I learned when I was taking those classes, not necessarily like learned, but I found really interesting was people's like fear of pain.
Oh, that's huge.
Being so huge as a factor. Like that anxiety of pain is enormous. And like we've talked about like the dread you get, but it's not necessarily like anxiety or like,
no.
We don't fear the pain. We just get fed up.
Right.
Like you get to a point where you're tired. And you're tired of being tired.
Yeah.
And then your coping skills go out the window because you don't have any more.
No, there's a wall that you can hit.
Right.
Where the jokes don't work, where your generic, like your normal everyday coping skills aren't helping.
Yeah.
And something big is coming. You can feel it. You're done.
Yeah.
It's like with anything else.
Right.
You can overwork yourself, and you can do the same thing with pain. You can overpain yourself by not taking better care of yourself.
Well, and the chemicals that are
Jesus.
just constantly in your system because of pain. And I just find the mechanism of pain so fascinating to begin with. Like it's meant to be this like, stop doing that thing.
For normal people,
like don't touch it. It's hot and it will burn you. Or like something is attacking you, protect yourself or you're going to die. Like that makes sense. But like the chronic pain where something is just constantly crying, you're just like, could you stop? Nothing is wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing out of the ordinary is wrong.
I remember this was like suicidal times. I was on the floor shaking and I'm rocking back and forth and I'm screaming my lungs out like crying. And I was like yelling at my body. I'm like, why are we doing this? Yeah. I know that there's a problem, but this isn't helping me fix the problem. Can we please stop?
I've done that before where I'll be like, I hear you. There's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
Stop it. Like, I hear you. I know. I'm aware. Mm-hmm. Please stop. You don't have to tell me.
You don't have to keep sending the message. We get it.
Like, we're there. I got it. I heard you. Stop.
Yep.
Yeah, no. Pain is just fascinating. And, like, the fear of pain is that really big thing that just... And I mean, it makes sense when you're, like, dreading the pain. And I don't know. Like, have you heard that story about the guy who put a nail through his boot?
Yeah.
And he was in horrible, horrible pain until he got the boot off, and it had not gone through his foot at
Right.
all.
It was all...
It's all there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, that anxiety, learning to manage that anxiety is huge. And so I think the classes are really valuable. And
No,
it's
absolutely.
really important for people to understand the mental aspect as well. But, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to ask people to be that vulnerable when they're feeling vulnerable already.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Well, and...
Well,
Like
and people stuck in their ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like at the clinic I'm at, it's mandatory that you do so many weeks of group in the beginning. Mm-hmm. I was excited as hell because I was like, oh, I get to talk to people and see what it's like. And because no one else had EDS, but they all had their own problems. Mm-hmm. But you could tell there were people there that were not happy about this mandate. First of all, they were in therapy, which they hated. Second of all, they just wanted their meds. And I was like, guys, you could at least try. I know it sucks, but
Right.
it's healthy.
But I mean, based on research, like, that's how you combat addiction.
Yeah.
And if
absolutely.
we were doing that as a healthcare system as a whole, we wouldn't have that problem so much, and we would be able to give meds to the people who need meds without that fear and that, like, toxicity that goes around the stigma of having pain meds.
Oh, God, yeah.
Like, even my husband, it took up until, like, this year for him to be comfortable with me taking pain meds. He's like, you're going to get addicted. I'm like, I'm really not.
Well, at least he loves you and he's
Right.
worried. You know what I mean?
But I'm like, that's not how that works.
I
I would have to be taking that a lot more than I am to get addicted.
all the time I'm asking Jen, are you going to divorce me because I'm addicted to pain meds? And she's like, you're not addicted. I was like, I know, but what if I was and we don't know it? She's like, Chris, you stop taking your meds all the time and you don't crave them. I'm like, yeah, but shut up. You don't know?
Exactly.
Like, I'm paranoid all the time about
Yeah.
taking meds.
Constantly. Well, and that's how I became what's known as the heroin
Dragon.
My husband calls me the heroin dragon. So I'm not an addict. I'm a dragon. I hoard them.
Until you absolutely fucking need
Yes.
them.
Well, that's the other part. When you get on, like, contracts like that expect it to be in your system all the
Then,
time.
yeah, you have to be on them all the time.
And it's hard, especially with EDS, the way we process medication. We build tolerance really quickly. Mm-hmm. And then it stops working.
Yeah.
And then you need a higher dose.
Well, I have summer goals to go down. So, like, we have a yearly goal where it's like, for the winter when it's really bad, I'm
Yeah.
allowed to up my medications if I need to. But for the summer, I always aim to go down to like 5s.
That's really
Like, if I could
good
get down to
thinking.
5s and be managing just fine,
Yeah,
that would be so fucking great.
right.
That's my goal.
Yeah.
And I still have a few months. Like, I'm going down.
Because then you have room to go up when things get really bad. And then
Exactly.
it works when you take it. Because that's the other part. If you build that tolerance, it stops working. And that was something I had to be, like, really explicit with my doctor about, and just say, I do not want to be on a pain agreement. A, because I'm not willing to stop using THC and CBD together, because I do a 1-to-1 usually. And then 2, because if I take them every day, they're going to stop working. It will not help me anymore.
Yeah, it's rough, man.
And that's not what I need. So I think that kind of goes into explicit communication.
Explicit communication.
Brown chicken, brown cow.
Go on. Let's talk about some explicit communication.
So, for me, this is something that I've learned over the past, like, year or two-ish.
Yeah.
And this applies not only to, like, the doctor situation, but to communicating with people in my life about how much pain I'm in, when I don't feel good, and what I need when I don't feel good. Because a lot of the time we just expect people to know. We're like,
Which is so unfair.
I'm giving off signs that I don't feel good. And other people are like, you are an asshole.
Yeah.
Like, what is wrong with you? You are being so terrible. So learning to be explicit was huge for me in communicating my needs and like being able to get the leeway that I needed from people. Like having the grace to bow out of occasions was enormous because there was always so much pressure around interacting with family and interacting with friends. And it took a long time for me to learn that I can literally just say, I really don't feel good.
I've lost friends over this. They're the kind where if they don't see you all the time, they think you hate them.
Yeah.
So I've either trained them into being okay with it, or most of my friends understand that I could go years without seeing you, but we're still going to be really close friends when I see you next time. Like,
Right.
It's going to be like we didn't miss anything.
Yeah, exactly.
I just can't always do the thing.
Yeah. So I've learned to be more open about what's going on
Yeah.
with me and like even at work going, I don't feel good. I have a headache. Like this is where I am in the world right now. And this is how I'm showing up and I'm doing my best.
It's hard to get used to doing that too in the beginning, like because you're so used to covering it up. Like there's
Right.
nothing wrong with me. I've got horrible imposter syndrome.
Right.
I'm perfectly fine. To going to like expressing it, I feel like I'll do it all the time with Jen. Like I'll wake up or it'll be the middle of her writing. I'm like, Jen, she'll go out and I'm like, I don't feel good. She's like, okay.
Well, and then training people that they don't necessarily have to do anything about it.
Right. I'm not looking for
Like I'm literally,
attention or
I'm
anything.
putting it
Just-
out in the air.
Right.
I'm acknowledging it for me and I'm acknowledging it for you.
Exactly. No, it makes a huge
It
difference.
does. And then they understand. And then you stop having that like, oh my God, you're such an asshole. And then you have
Yeah.
to like, you learn to stop being that much of an asshole
Right.
as well. Because you feel understood and you feel heard.
Yeah, no, me now versus me when I was like 25, when I was an absolute fucking wreck. Ugh, we not get along.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yep.
You'd be like, wow, why do you overshare now? Like, no, I need to.
Right.
I'm not oversharing. I'm just letting people know how I'm doing.
Well, and I think it's like, it's a check-in for us too.
Yeah.
Like checking in with yourself and acknowledging it.
Yeah, hearing myself say it
Yeah.
is huge.
Yeah. I think that, and that goes along with that like imposter syndrome thing
Mm-hmm.
where we have a really hard time believing ourselves as it is.
Yep.
So being able to say something and acknowledge it and then let it be our truth and be out in the air, it's important. And it's important for the people around you because they don't know what to do.
Right. Well, imagine how hard it must be when you don't believe yourself and you're trying to explain it to somebody. You just sound so unconvincing. Like,
Right.
well, it's...
Well, and then you downplay too
yeah, oh yeah.
to protect.
Oh, God.
Because
I
it's
downplayed the
vulnerable.
doctors.
Yeah.
I'm protecting the doctors from my pain.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's the downplay is crazy because
Yeah.
it's hugely vulnerable. And I mean, it feels that way in the beginning. Now, not so much.
Right.
Like now it feels perfectly normal to be like, I really don't feel good. I am not happy about being alive in this moment. Mm-hmm. I would like to go lay down. This is what I need. But the people around you, they have no idea. Mm-hmm. And then when we downplay, they really have no idea.
Well, and you go from like 0 to 60 so fast that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like if something actually starts bothering you and you're already like putting on the happy face and you just can't anymore.
There was one day, I was talking to my mother-in-law and we were just like sitting at the kitchen and I really didn't feel good. And I let everybody know I was in a lot of pain. And she asked me a question and my brain like flipped, like I flipped my lid.
Oh, God.
And I had to kind of like rein it back in and look at her and go, I almost took your head off for that question. That was just stupid. It was a stupid question, but it was enough for like, I was like, I don't want to have to think about this. I don't want to have to like search my brain for answers. My brain's not working.
Yeah.
But being able to like turn to her and go, I almost took your head off and I'm really sorry. Like, I'm in pain and that was my first instinct.
That happens with me and Jen all the time. Usually I'll mishear something and I'll be like, I thought you said this. I know you didn't, but this is why I'm angry now because I thought you said this, but we're fine.
When I had my first surgery and I had been like practicing it for a while, my husband would run up the stairs ahead of me. And there was one day I got like mad at him And I had to like acknowledge it out loud. I was like, I just got really angry with you because you can go up the stairs normally.
You ableist.
I was like, my brain was really ticked off at you
Yeah.
for a second.
Oh, God.
I don't know.
I do that with Jen too. She'll do something like, yeah, it must be real hard.
Yep.
Or like, she got her shot right. So last night, she's like, I feel achy. I'm hot and I'm cold. And I look over and I didn't say anything. She's like, I get how you feel now. I have the brain fog. I hate this. And I was like,
Yes.
fair.
Yeah.
Fair point. She beat me to it. I was going to berate her. I was going to be like, really? You're coming at me with this right now? I mean, I love you, but...
Yep. Yeah. No, it's interesting. And it does. It gets so much easier when you learn how to, like, hold your ground and stand up and go, these are my needs, and I need them met
Yes.
this way. And teaching people how to interact with you, which we don't do,
Right.
which is a shame, because when you teach people how to interact with you, then you have, like, really nice, safe boundaries that you've already done the legwork for.
God. I mean, all my friends that I have now, I had to teach. Mm-hmm. I'd be like, if I was angry at you, I would let you know.
Yeah.
I'm the kind of person that I would just straight up tell you. Like, you don't have to worry. I'm not saying nice things to you to make you angry. I genuinely think you're a good person.
Right. I still have to do it with my husband all the time. Like,
Yeah.
he'll think I'm hinting about something. I'm like,
Don't play the
I
hinting
don't
game.
do hinting. No. If I wanted that thing, I would tell you I wanted that thing. Mm-hmm. Usually, if I'm like unclear about something, it's because I haven't decided, or like my brain is still trying to figure out what's going on. So he's like, do you want me to carry something? And I'll go, no. He's like, that means yes. And I was like, no, that meant I had to like organize my thoughts
Yeah.
and then decide.
I kind of have the opposite problem with Jen. She'll think that if I'm saying something sarcastically that I'm hinting.
Oh.
So she's like, are you being sarcastic, or do you want me to get you that thing? And I'm like, no, I'm being sarcastic. Don't worry.
See, at least she asks. That's
Yeah.
huge.
We used to get into fights over it, though.
Yeah.
Because I would, no, I was being sarcastic. I didn't actually want you to do the thing.
I've had to do that
Yeah.
with my husband and like ask him, like he will come at me with the hinting thing, and I just don't have patience for it because, again, it's a waste of energy.
Yeah.
I'm like, just say what you need to say. So I will stop him where he's at and go, what are you asking me?
I had to do it all the time
And
with
just
Jen.
rephrase and reframe the
He
situation.
has ADD,
and go,
doesn't he?
Yeah.
HD.
Yeah.
They're the same brain.
Yeah.
No, yeah, because Jen has the same problem where, like,
Yeah.
she'll hint and I'm like, just
Or
give
like
it to me straight.
set up like a story
Yeah.
so that you can present this ask. And I'm like, stop. Skip all of that. What are you asking
Yeah, I'm
me?
good to go with just the ask.
Yeah. Just tell me what you need.
Yep.
Ask me the question. But it's you gotta learn how to communicate effectively. And that's something that we kind of missed out on in childhood.
Yeah.
I think everybody did.
Are we getting knocks?
I think so. I heard it.
Will you check it?
Yes.
In the meantime, I will sing the national anthem of zebras.
Ow.
She stole my thunder. I was gonna say ow.
Hello. How did I do right when you were opening it?
Okay, what do you need?
I wanted to hang out.
We're recording a podcast right now.
Oh.
I love you, though. We'll hang out after, okay?
You just have such good kids.
Yeah, I have to explain to Jen sometimes that, like, it's not normal for them to be okay with that. Like, a lot of kids would
Right.
throw temper tantrums, or, you know, like, Sophie will be like, or at nighttime when I'm like, go to bed, and they have to turn off their computers and everything. They don't throw temper tantrums. They go,
Yeah.
okay. And they
Right.
turn everything off when they go to bed.
Well, and I think that has a lot to do, like, coming back to that explicit piece.
Yeah, it's being just exactly
Right.
straightforward. I've always talked straight with those kids.
Yeah. Like, there's no, like, beating around the bush or, like, just because or, yeah, like, access to information and being honest communicators.
Yeah,
And they're good communicators, too. Like,
they are.
they're very good at, like, I have a need and I would like it to be met now, please.
Let's see, what else is on the list? What have we not talked about? We kind of hit on everything but that one.
Oh, encountering random zebras.
I don't meet random zebras. I
Yeah.
don't go out.
I have met...
Agoraphobic. Not really. Just kidding.
No. We're just naturally homebodies. Yeah, I've met zebras in Vegas. I've
Oh,
met
yeah.
zebras at the farmer's market. I've met zebras at the gym. I've met zebras standing in line at like gas stations. Like I watched
That's trippy.
I watched a kid turn his heels. You know how when we're standing in line and we pop them?
Yep.
I watched a kid doing that, and afterwards I like approached him and I was like, "So, this sounds really weird, and I'm sorry, but do you have like joint pain and all this stuff?" Because he was like maybe 20, maybe. And he was like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Maybe you should look up Ehlers-Danlos syndrome."
Just
And I left it with that, and I was like, "Good luck."
we need like little cards. You know, like you might have this.
Right?
Just look it up.
Because they do. They like, it's rare. It's not rare. It's not. It's really, unless you know what you're looking for, it
Yeah.
can be really hard to spot. And like,
Well, and doctors don't get trained on it.
Yeah.
Most doctors that I've met, I've had to teach.
I love that when they're like, "What is that?"
Yeah, I remember in school it was stretchy. You guys have
Like,
flexible skin?
remind me about this.
Well, it's like that's just one part of it. Let's go into the whole shebang.
Like, my collagen is broken. It does not work.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's always a fun one. Yeah, I'm meeting zebras all over the place. All the time. Where they're like, "Oh, someone mentioned that to me once upon a time." I was like, "No, do some research.
Hey, look into it. It could change your life.
That's what that is." Where you like randomly put people through the Biden score.
Yo,
Like,
yeah.
"Can you do this? How about this?" And usually it's because I'm like wearing a brace.
Yeah.
And people are like, "Oh, what's that for?"
See, I
and
wish I
then
had more physical
explain.
stuff. I have a cane
Yeah.
or a walker.
Or a crutch.
I don't like those though.
Yeah.
I don't like using the cane, but I don't,
don't
have
like
anything that
the
like
cane either.
I can point to be like, look, I have a very
Right.
obvious physical disability.
Right, because it's that like visible versus invisible
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
I don't have any of those.
Yeah, it's challenging. And I almost don't wear my braces anymore at all.
You break your braces.
I do.
I watched you crunch one on this
That was
couch.
fabulous. I was like, "I need to reach the thing." Stop in the brace. And then I was like, "No, I'm going to reach the thing." And I,
The brace was
Broke
screaming
it.
out, "Don't, do not!" And you're like, "Yeah, it's fine.
yeah. And then I broke the brace.
No more brace for her."
It was a good time. Like, broke it.
Yeah, it's dead.
Like, popped screws out of it and everything. The little bearing was just
The
gone.
little spirit came out of it.
Right? Just into the ether. Oh, man.
I mean, that about covers it for today.
I think so.
Hopefully, it was educational or entertaining or edutational.
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 Edutational. And now I've had a stroke.
Yeah, it's been a long day.
Right?
Many strokes
This
have been
room
had.
is warm.
I know.
Like, I'm getting hot. So I'm like,
I'm melting.
time to wrap it up for the sake of not overheating.
Yes. So I guess we'll see you guys next time.
Indeed. Take care.
Or don't. I'm not. Do whatever it works for you. I'm sorry. She's just like that.
Also, drink some water.
Oh, yeah. Hydrate.
On that note, we'll see ya.
Bye.
Bye.